when a story breaks.
But the riot police and the protesters are now about to set to clash again.
We are there.
We'll be bringing you much more on another historic day here in Ukraine.
With no clues and no wreckage found, that could take a very long time to solve.
David Moyes has been sacked.
The houses and the communities just down the valley are at the mercy of those winds.
Unless they can channel all of this into political action, it's a recipe for more violence.
We do want election, but after reform.
The Syrian army is declaring victory, but at what a price?
With journalists in more countries, we break stories from more places than any other international news broadcaster. We are the leaders in global breaking news.
Hello, welcome back to Global. I'm John Sopel. Well, the swinging 60s in London was a time of freedom, peace and love, people expressing themselves through their colourful clothes, changing music, psychedelic art. Well, one artist who made an impression was the late David Vaughan, a founding member of the British underground art scene. He created pieces for the likes of Paul McCartney, Jimi Hendrix, even royalty. Well, a retrospective of his work will be displayed at an exhibition in London opening today on what would have been his 70th birthday. Well, I'll be speaking to his daughter, the actress Sadie Frost, in just a moment. First, though, let's just take a look at his family discussing his work.
There was always like these naked pictures everywhere. They called this one Cross of Despair. This one's called The Wedding.
I think so, isn't it?
It was your wedding.
Yeah, I think so.
My wedding?
Yeah.
I would have been 15 when he did this. And it was probably just him pouring out how he felt at the time onto paper and venting his frustrations at whatever was going on in the world, I suppose, whatever was affecting him.
That's good, isn't it? When did he paint that one?
That was probably about 2000.
I think it was
this one.
Again, that was a mural.
There's Hendrix, Jagger and who else is that?
Wow, what an enormous collection of work, and you can see some of them on the screens behind us now. Well, with me is David Vaughan's daughter, actress Sadie Frost. Sadie, welcome to you. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Why have you decided to do the retrospective?
Well, I mean, it's been a long time coming, really. I mean, he passed away, it would be 10 years ago, and he would have been 70 today. And what happened was, when he passed away, he was very ill, he was quite estranged from the family, and none of us knew what to do with his artwork. And there was 4 decades of his work, and we were like, what should we do with it? And it ended up all being put in a barn in northern Manchester. And it was kind of really sad that his work was just locked away, and we were thinking, this man painted passionately all his life, and now nobody's seeing his work. So once it was put in the barn, it was hard to get it out, and I kept visiting it and thinking, what should I do? And then in the end, because there was no will and everything, the whole family had to agree together to what to do. And I've been working on it for about 2 years, and I just thought, make a documentary, do an exhibition, and have some closure.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, was it an important psychological thing for you to do as well? I mean, I just kind of, you used the word closure there, which made me just suddenly think, well, was there something cathartic for you in this process also?
Absolutely. I think for the whole family, it was very cathartic. I think because we all had quite a difficult relationship with my father, and he had a very difficult relationship as well with the art world. A lot of people didn't actually get to see his work. So I thought it was a responsibility of mine, once he'd passed away, to get people to see his work. And I had a responsibility to him because he was a very talented artist, but he just didn't really know how to operate in the modern world. So for me, it's been very cathartic, and going and seeing his work, and I really began...
A lot of different styles, actually. You know, there is psychedelic, but there's also, you know, straight portraiture as well in some of it.
Absolutely. There's a lot of oil paintings. I mean, when I go back to the barn, I see there's some massive pieces, and there's some little sketches and some charcoals. And it was very difficult to actually think about how to create it, and I'm not a professional creator. I was thinking, how do I choose this work? And so it's all quite random, really. I kind of was just picking a bit from here and a bit from there. And the interesting thing was, I was at an exhibition at Ray Davies's Konk Studios up in Crouch End, and he mentioned to me that he would actually be happy to host an exhibition, and my father had painted the car that's on the cover of Sunny Afternoon, the Kinks album.
Interesting. What is your memory of growing up? Because it also, I mean, I've read bits and it sounds chaotic.
It was very chaotic, and I think, I mean, some bits were brilliant and some bits were quite traumatic and painful, but there were some amazing bits where we lived on a bus and we drove from Belsize Park in London to, we lived on Formentera in just off the island of Ibiza, and we lived on this bus and we were hippies and it was free love, and my dad would do things like we were constantly doing runners from campsites or petrol stations, or we would all go for dinner and he wouldn't pay for the meal and we'd all have to just run down the street. So it was quite wild. But I looked up to him. I thought he was, you know, he was very magnetic and he was a very, you know, it was quite sad when he'd gone, because even though I kind of moaned about him being a bit of a pain, I don't think I've met anyone else since he passed away who's got such a huge personality. But, you know, he was an amazing man. He was just quite troubled, and that's, I suppose, sometimes...
And when you say troubled, I mean, I think he was bipolar, is that right?
Well, I mean, some people say he's bipolar, some people say he was suffering from schizophrenia. He'd been spiked with the drug LSD, and he'd had some repercussions from that. And he was also suffering from hepatitis C, and he was undiagnosed. And if you're not diagnosed with hepatitis C, often the disease gets so kind of, is so prolonged and so much damage is done, you actually start kind of losing your mind.
Yeah, I mean, there was an extraordinary story of, you know, him painting, I think, a mural above a shop in Carnaby Street, which is, you know, kind of a few hundred yards from where we're speaking now, and he fell off. And rather than taking him to hospital, they gave him LSD, some of his friends.
I know, I mean, that's the thing, somebody spiked his tea with LSD, so he'd had concussion, and then he was having this trip from this LSD, and I think the whole thing then just kind of, he just imploded. After that, he never really recovered.
I mean, do you hope that there will be a huge commercial aspect to this? I mean, you look at, sort of, say, someone like Peter Blake, who did famously did the design of the cover of the album of Sgt. Pepper's, and, you know, he's a huge British artist now. Are you hoping for something similar?
I mean, for me, tonight is about the family, about us all sticking together, friends and family. The way Ray Davies hosts his exhibition is very kind of organic community feel, which is what my father was about. He was never about capitalism and materialism and selling his work. So for me, it's, I mean, people are interested.
But if people came along and said, you know, I'd like to buy that...
we're not selling it at the moment. We don't know what to do with it, and because there's 7 of us that have to agree with what, you know, shall we sell it? We're going to be fighting the whole time. So at the moment, we're just thinking of where we can keep it that's safe, and so it's not getting water damage, because it's been in a barn. It's all quite... It's very weird. I mean, what do you do with 500 paintings? You can't, you know... It's a difficult decision to make. I mean, I'd love to show...
Particularly when you've got a committee of family members who've each got different interests.
We're all disagreeing, but, you know, for me, tonight is just about showing his work, celebrating his life, getting the whole family together, which is, you know, practically impossible. I think this is the first time it's probably happened since he passed away, and just enjoying his life, and I think he'll be looking up, very proud of his children and very proud of me, so I'm very excited.
Sadie, fabulous to have you in the studio. Thank you very much indeed, and kind of, you know, we're happy to show the artworks. It's really interesting as well. I'm going to try and get along to the exhibition as well.
Thank you.
Well, Global will be back very shortly. Do stay with us. A lot more still to come. You can get in touch with me on Twitter. I'm at BBC John Sokol.